Captain Sam Harris stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and stared at the main screen. The ship's sensors had picked up something big, very big, moving into the solar system. After decades of sending signals into space hoping to find other life, humanity had finally got an answer. "Report," Captain Harris said to his crew. Lieutenant Olivia Martinez looked up from her station. "Sir, the object is slowing down near Mars orbit. It's massive, about 20 times bigger than our ship." "Any signals?" Harris asked. Communications Officer Alan King touched his earpiece. "Nothing yet, Captain. Wait. Something's coming through now." The screen on the bridge flickered. The crew of the Horizon held their breath. This was it. First contact with aliens. A moment that would change human history forever. The image that appeared showed a creature that looked almost like a person, but with key differences. It had a thin body with skin that changed colors between purple and green. On its head sat what looked like a very fancy hat that seemed to float above its head. The alien had 4 eyes, all blinking at different times. "Greetings, primitive species," the alien said, pausing between each word like it was reading from a very slow teleprompter. "I am Grand Admiral Zix Valorian of the Galactic Imperial Fleet." The alien took a deep breath, making a whistling sound through what appeared to be gills on its neck. "Your world is now under our protection. Resistance is discouraged." The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Lieutenant Martinez made a strange noise, a snort that she tried to hide by covering her mouth. Her eyes went wide with horror at what she had done. The alien tilted its head, all 4 eyes focusing in different directions. "Is there a problem with your breathing apparatus?" Alan King bit his lip so hard he almost drew blood. Science Officer Diane Washington turned away from the screen, her shoulders shaking slightly. "No, Grand Admiral," Captain Harris said, keeping his voice steady. "My crew member is fine. We are honored by your protection." The alien nodded, causing its elaborate headdress to wobble dangerously. "We have studied your transmissions. We believe you are ready to join the galactic community." Harris nodded solemnly. "We are definitely ready for that," the alien continued. "The Empire spans 17 sectors of this galaxy. We have brought peace and order for 10,000 years. As Zix Valorian continued to speak, listing all the benefits of Imperial protection, Captain Harris noticed his crew was having more and more trouble keeping straight faces. He couldn't blame them. The slow, dramatic speech pattern was hard enough to take seriously, but when combined with the constantly color-changing skin and the wobbling headdress, it was almost too much. "We will send a delegation to your planet in 2 of your Earth weeks," the alien announced. "Prepare your leaders for our arrival." Just then, the Grand Admiral seemed to have a problem. Its face scrunched up, the color changing rapidly from purple to green and back again. Then it made a noise, a cross between a deflating balloon and a cat's meow, before quickly covering its face with a long, 6-fingered hand. Captain Harris realized the alien had sneezed. That did it. The entire bridge crew lost their battle, with composure. Lieutenant Martinez laughed out loud. Alan King doubled over at his station. Even the usually serious Diane Washington had tears running down her face as she tried and failed to stop laughing. The Grand Admiral looked confused. "What is happening? Are you suffering from some kind of seizure, Captain?" Harris tried to explain, but found himself fighting back laughter too. "I apologize, Grand Admiral. It's just that humans sometimes make this noise when When we're happy to meet new friends, Science Officer Washington offered, wiping her eyes. The alien did not seem convinced. This is a greeting? Ritual? Something like that, Captain Harris said, finally getting himself under control. We meant no disrespect. Very well, Zix Valorian said, clearly still confused. We will overlook this strange behavior this time. Prepare for our arrival. The transmission ended, and the bridge was silent for about 3 seconds before everyone started laughing again. Did you see that headdress? Martinez asked between laughs. I thought it was going to fall off when he sneezed. And that sneeze, Alan added. Like a sad party balloon. Captain Harris raised his hands. Okay. Pull yourselves together. This is still first contact with an alien civilization. We need to take this seriously. Yes, sir, Martinez said, trying to stop smiling and failing. Very seriously, Harris shook his head. I need to report this to Earth Command. They're not going to believe this. Within hours, the video of the transmission had been sent back to Earth. The reactions were mixed. Some people were afraid. After all, a massive alien ship had just shown up and basically claimed Earth as its territory. But many others had the same reaction as the Horizons crew. The slow, dramatic speech, the elaborate costume, the sneeze. It was hard to be terrified of these aliens. By the next day, memes of Grand Admiral Zix Valorian were spreading across the internet. People added funny captions to images of the alien, or edited the video to make the sneeze even more dramatic. Late-night talk show hosts had a field day. Back on the horizon, Captain Harris received new orders. They were to escort the alien delegation to Earth when it arrived. Harris called his senior officers to a meeting. Look, he said seriously, I know the first contact was funny, but we need to do better next time. The fate of Earth could depend on making a good impression. Yes, sir, his officers said together, looking appropriately serious. No laughing, no matter what, Harris continued, even if the entire delegation sneezes at once. Lieutenant Martinez covered her mouth, trying not to laugh at the mental image. This is going to be harder than I thought. Captain Harris sighed. 2 weeks later, as the massive Imperial ship approached Earth with the Horizon as its escort, humanity prepared for its first official meeting with the Galactic Empire. Despite all efforts to prepare the public, there was one question on everyone's mind. How were they supposed to take these aliens seriously? 2 weeks after first contact, a large field in Nebraska that once grew corn had been turned into a landing site for the Imperial ships. 5 disc-shaped vessels had touched down, each one bigger than a football stadium. The middle ship, painted in shiny gold and purple, belonged to the Empire's cultural expert, Key Lara. Ambassador William Scott stood at the edge of the landing site with his team. They wore their best suits and most serious faces. The president had been very clear: no laughing, no jokes, and absolutely no memes. This was serious business. Remember, Scott told his team, these aliens control a huge part of the galaxy. We need to make a good impression. Linda Jones, his assistant, nodded. Yes, sir. No laughing. A door opened in the side of the gold and purple ship. A ramp extended to the ground. 4 aliens in stiff, shiny uniforms marched out and stood in a perfect line. Then came Kilara. The cultural expert was shorter than Grand Admiral Zix Valorian, but wore an even more elaborate outfit. Her skin shimmered between blue and pink. Instead of a floating headdress, she had what looked like a birdcage on her head, complete with small floating balls that moved around inside it. Greetings, humans, Kilara said through a translator device hanging around her neck. The device gave her a high, sing-song voice that made her sound like a cartoon character. I am Kilara, cultural integration expert of the 15th rank. Ambassador Scott stepped forward and bowed slightly. Welcome to Earth. I am Ambassador William Scott, representing the United Nations and all of humanity. Kilara made a series of clicking sounds with her mouth. The translator spoke. You did not bow correctly. For a being of your status meeting, one of my rank, you should bend at exactly 45 degrees and hold for 3 seconds. Scott looked confused. I apologize. We weren't told about specific Boeing rules. This is why I am here, Kilara said, to help your primitive species understand proper imperial etiquette. There are 17 distinct ways to bow, depending on your social rank. Linda Jones coughed, trying to hide her reaction. The alien had just called humans primitive while wearing what looked like a birdcage on her head. We appreciate your guidance, Scott said diplomatically. We have prepared a place for your delegation to stay and work. That is acceptable, Kilara replied. But first, I must inspect it to ensure it meets imperial standards. The human team led Kilara and her assistants to a newly built building nearby. The U.S. government had rushed to construct it according to the specifications sent by the Empire. It had strange angles, purple lighting, and chairs that looked very uncomfortable. Kilara walked around inspecting everything. This will do, though the ceilings are too low for proper respect to be shown. What does the ceiling height have to do with respect? Scott asked. The space above one's head represents the room for spiritual growth, Kilara explained very seriously. Low ceilings indicate low spiritual aspirations. Scott heard someone on his team stifle a laugh. He spoke quickly to cover it up. That's fascinating. We have many different architectural philosophies on Earth. Yes, I have studied your cultures, Kilara said. They are quite basic. For the next few hours, Kilara explained imperial customs to the human delegation. Each explanation made it harder for the humans to keep straight faces. When meeting the Emperor, Kilara demonstrated, you must approach with small steps, never showing the soles of your feet. Then you must make the sacred gesture of submission. She proceeded to perform what looked like an enthusiastic round of pat a cake with her forearms, finishing by twirling in a circle and dropping to one knee. Linda Jones suddenly needed to leave the room. Is your colleague ill? Kilara asked. She just needed to use the restroom, Scott said, struggling to maintain his composure. Ah, yes. Biological functions. So primitive. By the end of the day, the human delegation was exhausted from trying not to laugh. They had learned about imperial food customs, never eat anything red on Tuesdays, sleeping arrangements, beds must point toward the galactic core, and conversation rules, 17 seconds of silence before answering a superior's question. As they were finishing, Kilara made an announcement. The Emperor himself has taken an interest in your species. Most unusual. He will be visiting Earth in one of your months. Scott almost choked. The Emperor? Coming here? Yes. Emperor Zorthalax VII, Light of the Celestial Void, Harmonizer of the 17 Sectors, Grand Poobah of the Imperial Order and Keeper of the Sacred Lightbulb of Destiny. Another diplomat had to suddenly tie his shoe to hide his face. That's quite a title, Scott managed to say. It is only his short title, Kilara said. The full recitation takes 4 hours. That evening, after the Imperial delegation had returned to their ships, the human team met to discuss the day's events. This is a disaster, Scott said. How are we supposed to take them seriously? The Emperor is coming, and his title includes Grand Poobah and something about a light bulb. Maybe they're testing us, suggested another diplomat named Gary Nelson, to see how we react to ridiculous demands. Or maybe they really are like this, Linda Jones said, finally able to laugh freely. Did you see her face when I asked about their main exports and she said, decorative throw pillows? Don't forget the contemplative pineapples, Gary added, and they all laughed. Scott shook his head. The problem is, these aliens have technology far beyond ours. They could probably destroy Earth if they wanted to. We need to find a way to respect their customs without laughing in their faces, Linda offered. Exactly. The next day, news reports showed that videos of Kilara explaining imperial customs had leaked online. Within hours, people across Earth were doing the sacred gesture of submission dance as a joke. Memes spread even faster than they had after the first contact. One late-night show host, Gregory Allen, did an entire segment pretending to be an imperial fashion expert, reviewing Kilara's birdcage hat and other imperial fashions. When Kilara emerged from her ship the next morning, she seemed disturbed. Ambassador Scott, she said, her translator's high voice even more squeaky than usual. "I have been monitoring your planet's information networks. Your people are performing sacred imperial rituals incorrectly and for entertainment." Scott swallowed hard. "I apologize, cultural expert Kilara. Humans have a complex response to new information. Sometimes we use humor to help us understand things." Humor. Kilara said the word as if tasting something strange. "Yes, our scientists have been studying this concept. It seems to be a form of mental malfunction unique to less advanced species." Scott bit the inside of his cheek. "We don't see it as a malfunction." "Of course not," Kilara said, with what might have been pity. "That is why you need our guidance. The Emperor will help your species overcome these primitive responses." As Ambassador Scott led Kilara to their next meeting, he wondered how humanity was going to survive a visit from the Emperor without laughing the entire time. The fate of Earth might depend on their poker faces, and so far things weren't looking good. 1 month after Kilara's arrival, the day everyone on Earth had been waiting for finally came. Emperor Zorthalax VII, ruler of 17 galactic sectors and self-proclaimed Light of the Celestial Void, was coming to Earth. The Emperor's fleet arrived with great fanfare. 200 ships entered Earth's atmosphere and arranged themselves in what the Imperial Advance Team described as the formation of supreme awe. From the ground, however, the pattern looked remarkably like a giant smiley face. Major Frank Robinson of the Global Defense Force stood in Central Park, New York, where the Emperor's main ship would land. He had been chosen to be the military escort for the Emperor during his visit. Frank had practiced the proper Imperial greeting for weeks and had read the 47-page protocol document so many times he could recite it from memory. "Stand up straight," his commanding officer reminded him. "And whatever you do, don't laugh." "Yes, sir," Frank said. No laughing. A massive golden ship, shaped like a perfect pyramid, descended into the park. It was so big that it cast a shadow over several city blocks. When it landed, the grass beneath it didn't even bend. Some kind of anti-gravity technology kept it floating just above the ground. A door opened in the side of the ship. Red smoke poured out, and strange music that sounded like whale songs mixed, with trumpet blasts filled the air. Then came the Imperial Guard, wearing round, bulbous armor that made them look like walking Christmas ornaments. They formed 2 lines leading from the ship. Then he appeared. Emperor Zorthalax VII emerged sitting on a floating throne. He was tall, even for one of his species, with skin that shifted between gold and blue. His outfit defied description. It had shoulder pads that stuck out 3 feet on each side, and a cape so long that 6 attendants had to carry it. On his head sat what looked like a small city, made of shiny metal. The crowd of humans who had gathered to watch fell silent for a moment. Then someone giggled. The sound spread until a low rumble of suppressed laughter rippled through the crowd. Frank stepped forward, determined to do his job properly. He had been told to wait until the Emperor's throne floated to the red carpet before speaking. The floating throne moved forward with a slight wobble. One of the cape carriers tripped, causing a chain reaction that made all of them stumble. The Emperor's cape dragged on the ground for a moment before they recovered. Frank heard more laughter from the crowd but kept his face serious as the throne reached the carpet. "Welcome to Earth, your..." Frank paused, trying to remember the correct title from the protocol document. "You will address him as Radiant Nexus of Imperial Will." A small alien with a very large book whispered loudly. "Sorry. Welcome to Earth, Radiant Nexus of Imperial Will," Frank said, hoping he got it right. The Emperor looked down at Frank from his floating throne. His eyes were large and gold, like 2 shiny coins. "We are pleased to visit your world," the Emperor said. His voice was surprisingly normal compared to other Imperials humans had met. "We have heard much about Earth." "We are honored by your presence," Frank replied, using the exact words he had been told to say. "You will now perform the greeting of utmost respect," the advisor with the book prompted. Frank took a deep breath. This was the part he had practiced most. He had to make 3 turns to the right, bow at exactly the right angle, then make a series of hand gestures while reciting a phrase in the imperial language. He began the turns, but on the second one, the Emperor's throne suddenly hiccuped. There was no other word for it. The anti-gravity seemed to fail for a split second, causing the throne to drop a few inches before catching itself. The Emperor bounced in his seat. The elaborate city-like crown on his head tilted to one side. He quickly straightened it, but not. Before several small decorative pieces fell off and clattered to the ground, Frank froze mid-turn. The crowd's suppressed giggles turned into outright laughter. Even some of the human officials standing nearby had to cover their mouths. "Continue," the Emperor said stiffly. Frank tried. He really did. He finished the turns, made the hand gestures, and attempted to recite the phrase Kel Norak Vos Imperium Glorificus. What came out instead was Kel Norak Vos Imperium, Glorificus? The Emperor's advisor gasped in horror. "You questioned the glory of the Empire. This is an insult of the highest order." Frank looked mortified. "I didn't mean to question anything. I just forgot the exact pronunciation." The Emperor raised a hand with 6 long fingers. "Enough. We will overlook this error. Take us to your leaders." As the imperial procession moved through New York City toward the United Nations building, people lined the streets. Many were filming with their phones. The Emperor's wobbling throne, his massive shoulder pads that barely fit through wide streets, and the cape carriers struggling to keep up made for quite a sight. At the UN, world leaders waited nervously. They had all been briefed on proper imperial etiquette and were determined to do better than the people in Central Park. The Emperor floated into the General Assembly Hall on his throne. The room fell silent as he took position at the center. "People of Earth," the Emperor began, "for 10,000 years, the Galactic Empire has brought peace and order to the stars. We have come to extend our protection to your world." He paused, probably expecting fearful respect. Instead, he got polite attention. "Our empire spans 17 sectors," he continued. "Our power is unmatched. Our wisdom is boundless. Our fashion is—" He seemed to search for the right word. "Advanced." Someone in the back of the room snorted. The Emperor continued his speech, explaining how Earth would benefit from imperial protection. "We will share some of our technology with you. You will provide us with resources. It is a fair exchange." When asked what resources the Empire needed, the Emperor's answer surprised everyone. "We require large quantities of what you call cotton for our textile industries. The Empire is the leading producer of decorative throw pillows in the galaxy. Also, we are interested in your pineapples. They are somewhat like our glavern fruit, but more contemplative." UN Secretary-General Nicole Davis struggled to maintain her composure. "Throw pillows? Contemplative pineapples?" "Yes," the Emperor said seriously. "Our throw pillows are highly sought after in all 17 sectors. It is a great honor for Earth to contribute to their production." After the speech, the Emperor was scheduled to meet privately with world leaders. As they moved to a conference room, his cape got stuck in the door. 3 attendants had to tug it free while everyone pretended not to notice. Back in the General Assembly Hall, the delegates broke into animated discussion once the Emperor had left. "Did he really say their main export is throw pillows?" one delegate asked. "And what does he mean by pineapples being contemplative?" another wondered. Outside the UN, the crowds watching on giant screens had no such restraint. Videos of the Emperor's wobbling throne, falling crown pieces, and cape mishaps were already going viral online. The empire that had expected to inspire fear and awe on Earth had instead become the biggest source of entertainment the planet had ever seen. And things were about to get much more complicated. 2 days after the Emperor's visit to the United Nations, an emergency meeting was called at the Galactic Embassy in Nebraska. Representatives from 118 alien civilizations that were part of the Empire had arrived to discuss what many were now calling the human disrespect crisis. UN Secretary-General Nicole Davis sat at one end of a long table. At the other end sat a gelatinous, blob-like alien named Blurb, who represented the Galactic Senate. Around the table were human diplomats and aliens of all shapes and sizes. "The situation is serious," Blurb said. his body wobbling as he spoke. His translator made his voice sound deep and important. Many Imperial citizens are disturbed by humans. Reaction to the Emperor. I don't understand the problem, Nicole said carefully. We welcomed the Emperor with full diplomatic honors. Yet your people laughed, Blurb countered. The sacred Imperial ceremonies were recorded and shared on your internet for entertainment. This is unacceptable. Ambassador William Scott, who had been dealing with Kilara for weeks, tried to explain. You must understand that humans use humor as a way to deal with new situations. We mean no disrespect. The Empire has conquered civilizations for lesser insults, Blurb said ominously. Even now, the Imperial fleet readies its planet pacifiers. This threat might have been more effective if Blurb hadn't been stress-shedding, a process that caused small bits of his gelatinous form to wobble off and make squelching noises as they hit the floor. Each time it happened, the human diplomats had to look away from each other to avoid laughing. Surely there's a peaceful solution, Nicole said. We value our relationship with the Empire. The Emperor demands a formal apology from Earth, Blurb announced, and the removal of all disrespectful content from your internet. The human delegates exchanged looks. Removing content from the entire internet was practically impossible. We can issue a formal apology, Nicole offered, but controlling what people share online is beyond our abilities. Are you saying your leaders do not control your information networks? Asked a tall, thin alien with what looked like a plant growing out of its head. That's correct, Nicole explained. In most human nations, people are free to share their thoughts and opinions. The aliens all started talking at once, clearly shocked by this concept. Meanwhile, the situation on Earth was getting worse from the Empire's perspective. Videos of Imperial ceremonies had gone completely viral. The most popular was a clip of the Emperor's wobbling throne set to dance music. Late-night talk show host Gregory Allen had started a segment called Imperial Fashion Week, where he commented on the increasingly outlandish outfits worn by Imperial dignitaries. The meeting was going nowhere when junior diplomat Ryan Lee, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. May I make a suggestion? Nicole nodded. Go ahead, Ryan. I think the problem is that we don't understand each other's cultures, Ryan said. Maybe the Imperial representatives should learn more about human humor. Blurb's gelatinous form rippled, with what might have been indignation. The Empire does not need to learn. The Empire teaches. With all due respect, Ryan continued, understanding goes both ways. If you want humans to respect Imperial customs, maybe you should try to understand why we react the way we do. After much discussion, Ryan suggested a cultural exchange. We could show you some classic human comedy, films that help explain our sense of humor. The aliens reluctantly agreed. That evening, they gathered in a large conference room at the embassy. Ryan had selected 2 films, The Princess Bride and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. As the movies played, the humans in the room watched the aliens for their reactions. At first, there was only confusion. The aliens whispered to each other, trying to understand why humans would find a man saying inconceivable repeatedly funny. But then something unexpected happened. During the scene where the Dread Pirate Roberts and Inigo Montoya duel while complimenting each other, one of the smaller aliens made a noise that sounded like bells tinkling. It was laughing. By the time they got to Monty Python with its absurd Knights of the Round Table and the Black Knight insisting his severed limbs were just a flesh wound, more aliens were showing signs of amusement. Even Blurb was wobbling, in a way that seemed less angry and more entertained. When the films ended, the room was quiet for a moment. This is how humans view authority? Kilara asked, having joined the viewing. As something to be laughed at? Sometimes, Ryan explained. Especially when authority takes itself too seriously. Humor helps us cope with power differences and reminds us that even important people are still just people. The aliens discussed among themselves in their own languages. Finally, Blurb spoke. We will report this to the Emperor. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. The next morning, Nicole received an urgent message. The Emperor wanted to address Earth again, but this time from his ship. World leaders and media gathered to hear what he would say. Many feared he would announce punishments or even an attack. When the emperor's image appeared on screens around the world, there was a collective gasp. Gone was the elaborate headdress. Gone were the massive shoulder pads. The emperor sat in a simple chair, not his floating throne, wearing what looked like a regular imperial uniform without all the extra decorations. "People of Earth," he began. "After careful consideration and cultural analysis, the Empire has decided to try a new approach to our relationship." He actually smiled, something no one had seen an Imperial do before. For 10,000 years, the Empire has relied on ceremony, tradition, and let's be honest, ridiculous outfits to maintain our authority. No species has ever reacted to us with laughter instead of fear. This has been educational. Across Earth, people looked at each other in confusion. Was the Emperor making a joke? Your junior diplomat Ryan Lee has shown us something valuable about human culture. You use humor to deal with fear, to question authority, and to build connections. This is different from our approach, but we are willing to learn. The Emperor held up a t-shirt. On it were the words, "I'm with stupid," and an arrow pointing to the side. I understand this is humorous because it suggests the wearer is calling someone else stupid while actually making themselves look foolish. Is this correct? No one knew how to respond. The Emperor of the mighty Galactic Empire was trying to understand. A novelty t-shirt. "We have much to learn from each other," the Emperor concluded. "The diplomatic crisis is over. Let us move forward with cultural exchange and mutual respect, and perhaps a bit more humor." As the transmission ended, people around the world weren't sure whether to be relieved or even more confused. Had humor just saved Earth from an interstellar incident? In the Nebraska embassy, Ryan Lee received a message. He was being promoted to lead a new diplomatic team focused on cultural exchange with the Empire. Their first task, explaining memes to Imperial scholars. 6 months after the Emperor's surprising second address, Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Imperial ships were now a common sight in the skies, but instead of looking scary, many of them had been painted with bright colors or funny pictures. Some even had what looked like bumper stickers attached to them. Ryan Lee, now the head of the Human Imperial Cultural Exchange Program, sat in his office at the Nebraska embassy, looking at reports from around the world. The changes in the Empire's approach to Earth had been remarkable. Gone were the overly formal speeches and elaborate ceremonies. Imperial representatives had started wearing simpler clothes. Some had even taken to wearing jeans and t-shirts when not on official business. The Emperor himself had been spotted wearing a baseball cap during his last visit. There was a knock on Ryan's door. It was Lara, the cultural expert who had once called humans primitive. She looked very different now. Her birdcage headdress was gone, and she wore a simple blue uniform with just a small Imperial badge. "Good morning, Ryan," she said, her translator now adjusted to sound less squeaky. "Are you ready for the conference call with the Emperor?" "Almost," Ryan said. "I just need to finish reading these reports." "Anything interesting?" Lara asked, sitting down across from him. "Very. Look at this one." Ryan handed her a tablet. "Tourism from the Empire to Earth is up 300% in the last 3 months. Apparently, we're now the most popular vacation spot in 3 sectors. Lara nodded. "Not surprising. Your planet has something the Empire has been missing for thousands of years." "What's that?" "Fun," she said simply. The biggest change had come from within the Empire itself. After videos of Earth's reaction to Imperial customs had spread throughout the 17 sectors, something unexpected had happened. The citizens of the Empire had started questioning things they had always taken for granted. Why did the Emperor need such a long title? Why did everyone have to bow in 17 different ways? Why were the uniforms so uncomfortable? Questions that had never been asked before were now being discussed openly. At first, the Imperial authorities had tried to stop it, but it was too late. The idea of laughing at authority rather than fearing it had spread like wildfire. The Empire was experiencing what historians would later call the Great Galactic Lighten Up. Ryan's computer beeped. It was time for his call with the Emperor. Kilara moved to stand beside him as the screen lit up. Emperor Zorthalax VII appeared, sitting in what looked like a normal office chair. He wore a simple crown instead of the city-like headdress, and a uniform that, while still fancy, wouldn't get stuck in doorways. "Greetings, Ryan Kilara," the Emperor said with a smile. Smiling was something he had been practicing. "How are things on Earth?" "Very good, sir," Ryan said. He still wasn't sure what to call the Emperor now that he had shortened his title to just Emperor. "Excellent. I have news from the capital. The Imperial Senate has voted to officially change some of our more excessive customs." Ryan and Kilara looked at each other in surprise. "The formal bowing has been reduced to just 3 types instead of 17, the Emperor continued. "And my official title is now only 7 words long instead of 462. "That's progress," Ryan said, trying not to smile too much. "Indeed, and there's more. We want to establish a permanent exchange program. More humans visiting Imperial worlds, more Imperial citizens visiting Earth." "That sounds wonderful," Ryan said. "Cultural exchange is the best way to build understanding." "There is one small problem," the Emperor admitted. "Some of the older members of the Imperial Court are not happy with these changes. They say I have weakened the Empire by making us, how did they put it, a laughingstock." "Change is always difficult," Kilara said. "But necessary." "Yes, well, I need to show them that these changes are making the Empire stronger, not weaker. That's why I'm coming back to Earth next week, and I'm bringing some of the traditional leaders with me." Ryan tried not to look worried. "What can we do to help?" "Show them what I've seen. That humor and relaxed customs don't mean disrespect. That being able to laugh at yourself is a strength, not a weakness." After the call ended, Ryan and Kilara quickly began planning. This visit needed to go perfectly. 1 week later, a fleet of Imperial ships arrived at Earth. This time, there was no formation of supreme awe. The ships simply parked themselves in orbit like normal visitors. The Emperor and his party, including 5 very old and serious-looking Imperial officials, took a small shuttle down to the White House in Washington, D.C., where world leaders waited to greet them. Ryan watched nervously as the shuttle landed. The Emperor emerged walking instead of using his floating throne. Behind him came the 5 officials, all wearing traditional Imperial outfits with enormous shoulder pads and trailing capes. The Emperor greeted the world leaders warmly. "Thank you for hosting us again. I would like to introduce some members of the Imperial High Council." The old officials shuffled forward, looking uncomfortable and slightly disgusted by the lack of ceremony. The President stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome to Earth. We've prepared a special welcome ceremony for you." The old officials perked up at this. Perhaps the humans had finally learned proper respect. What followed was a carefully planned performance. It began with a traditional Imperial greeting, with humans doing the complex bowing and hand gestures. But halfway through, the music changed. The humans broke into a choreographed dance that mixed Imperial movements with Earth dance styles. The old officials were shocked at first, but then one of them noticed something. The humans weren't mocking the Imperial customs. They were celebrating them, but in a joyful way instead of a fearful one. After the performance, the Emperor turned to his officials. "You see? They respect our traditions. They just express it differently." Over the next few days, the officials were shown around Earth. They visited schools where children had learned about the Empire. They attended sporting events where crowds cheered for them. They even appeared on Gregory Allen's late-night show, where they participated in a fashion contest judged by the audience. To everyone's surprise, the officials began to enjoy themselves. One of them was spotted at a baseball game wearing a foam finger. Another tried pizza and declared it better than Imperial food. A third one even told a joke, not a very good joke, but still, it was progress. On their final day on Earth, the IOE, oldest official who had been in the Imperial Court for over 300 years, made an announcement. "We have observed your world carefully," he said to the gathered human leaders, "and we have come to a conclusion. The Empire has been wrong. A gasp went through the room. For 10,000 years we have ruled through fear and rigid customs. We thought this made us strong. But seeing how humans respond to us with laughter, instead of fear, and how this has led not to disrespect but to genuine friendship, has taught us something valuable. The Emperor looked as surprised as everyone else. The Council votes unanimously to continue the cultural reforms. The old official declared. The Great Galactic Lighten-Up shall proceed. As the Imperial ships departed Earth a few days later, Ryan Lee stood with Kilara watching them go. You know what the funniest part of all this is? Ryan said. What? We saved the world with laughter. Kilara made the bell-like sound that was her species' version of a laugh. Perhaps the Empire needed to be laughed at. We took ourselves too seriously for too long. Ryan nodded. So what happens now? Now, Kilara said, we continue learning from each other. The Empire has technology and knowledge from thousands of worlds. Earth has pizza, baseball, and the ability to laugh at itself. I think it's a fair exchange. As Captain Sam Harris, now Admiral Harris, liked to say at diplomatic functions, turns out the most powerful weapon in the universe isn't a death ray or a black hole bomb. It's a sense of humor. The greatest irony, the empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds through fear was itself conquered by human laughter, and became better for it.